Okay, let's start. If you have not muted yourself, please do so respectfully. And it is a way for us to begin and have the least amount of interruptions as possible. I will let you know, like many of you, I live in rural Virginia. So if my face goes off the screen and you just see a photo shot, it's because I'm really working to keep the hamsters working on that internet so that I stay connected. Because often we kind of get booted out. But it's so great to see everyone. For many of you, I know you, but I'd like to say I'm Gina Keller, and I am the director for the Commonwealth Learning Partnership. And if you see on your screen a bit about our partnership, and it's just important for you to know that especially in our time across our nation, really across our world, but this time of some tension, and then the time of, I would say, potential for amazing, amazing growth on as an individual educator, as individuals coming together as a collective group, the Commonwealth Learning Partnership, comprised of lead organizations in Virginia who really want to wrap their arms around and embrace modernization of public education in Virginia. And with that, we just welcome you today. The last bit I will say to this particular group as an introduction is, please understand how very important it is that you stay connected, because our job is to really create a network of networks and people who rely on each other, share ideas, and that we don't want to lose the momentum of the emotional energy and the good that can come. I know it's been framed quite often as the silver linings, but the reality is, in this moment in time, history is being made. And in Virginia, I believe the stars are aligned for us to do beautiful, beautiful work for children. And that's exactly why everyone here that you'll meet today, that's why they have stepped into this space, a space that seems a little confusing at times, but also energizing, because I've always believed that when a stone is thrown, how you look at it, it can either be a stumbling block or a stepping stone. And so we're going to choose together that these are stepping stones, and that we're going to build a better educational experience for all of our children. So with that, I'd like to introduce Pam Moran, who's the Executive Director for the Virginia School Consortium for Learning, who in turn will do a quick intro of Ted Dintersmith and Becky Ellis, who've joined us today, and she has a little practice session for you as well. Pam. You're on mute, Pam.
Always helps to start with the unmute button. So it's great to be here with you today, and I have a very short, little bit of an agenda that Gina and friends have given to me. The first thing I want to do is just to welcome everybody from Virginia, from whether it's you're here because of VASCD, whether you're here because of VASS or CERN or George Mason connections, Vassal connections, Virginia Ed Strategies, as well as the support network that's building out around the work that we're doing to really emerge a network of networks, as Gina calls it. One of the things that I will tell you is that the Virginia is for Learners Innovation Network, VALEN. I don't know who can see my t-shirt, but VALEN started over 2 years ago as a result of conversations about what would it look like to build out across Virginia teams of educators who were really invested in local efforts to make a difference in implementing the profile of a Virginia graduate, and built out around 3 themes: equity, active engagement, and deeper learning. So when you see #VALEN, that's what it's about. But the Commonwealth Learning Partnership, obviously, as Gina said, is much bigger than that, because it really is a collaboration of multiple members of the partnership. So I wanted to make sure that you had some background on VALEN. The other thing that we want to do right now is to do a very quick test of a tool we're going to be using today called the Mentimeter. So I am one of those people that takes risk. I've never used it before, but Jennifer from Virginia Ed Strategies is going to help us get started with one simple test that we want everybody to try it out to make sure that you'll be able to use it as we move through. So Jennifer, I think you have a slide for us here. Wherever Jennifer Stevens is. There we are. What we want you to do is you're first going to go to www.menti.com, and you're going to use the code 730171. It's on the screen. And you're just going to kick out there, where are you joining from today? So wherever in the world you are, we would love to know where you are and where you're joining from today. And if you could put that into the Mentimeter, we would love to have you do that. So I see it starting to pop up. I see somebody's from Stafford, Colonial Heights, Zion's Crossroads. Oh, wow. Falls Church, King William County, Fluvanna, Purcellville, Forest, Virginia, West Point, Virginia, Radford City. Hey, Charleston, South Carolina, Burke, Virginia, Nottoway County. Just look at them starting to pop up from the where in the world are you? There we go. Still some more coming in, adding in. Newport News, Chesterfield, Charlottesville, yay. Newport News. Fluco. For those of you who don't know Virginia, that is the home of the Fighting Flucos of Fluvanna County. Rockbridge, Blacksburg, Virginia. Virginia Tech country for those of you, again, who are not in Virginia. Stafford County. It's great to see everybody logging in. Chesapeake, down on our eastern shore. Burlington, Vermont. Welcome to Virginia. Shenandoah County. Powhatan. Wow. So this is a new tool. We haven't used it before, and this is my first time to give it a test drive. So we're really just so happy to see everybody here. And one of the things I really love, that despite the fact that we have challenges in the virtual world, it is so great to be able to bring people together from all over Virginia, and nobody has to get in the car and drive anywhere. And I do have to tell you that there is some advantage to what I call couch PD. So that's what we're all doing today, is our version of couch, porch swing, in our office, at the beach, wherever you happen to be. This is a different kind of PD opportunity today. Gina, I'm going to just go ahead and introduce Becky and Ted. And I think we're going to get started as we let these continue to build, showing us where are we mapping to today. North Garden, yay. So
Yeah, thank you, Pam.
You're most welcome. Ted Dinner-Smith is joining us today. Ted has been a fierce champion of public education all over the United States, has been an investor in public educators, and was actually, I loved that it has only been a couple of years since the National Educational Association gave him the Friends of Teachers Award because of his real belief system that teachers across America are working so hard to make a difference with young people, and he's there to support up that effort as we attempt to innovate up moving into the future. The other thing for our folks from Virginia to know is that Ted is a native Virginian, graduated from James Madison High School up in Fairfax County, attended William and Mary, graduated from William and Mary. Fascinatingly, Ted, I want to make sure I get this right, with a double major in English, oh my gosh, and physics, I believe. Then went on, did an engineering PhD at Stanford University, and went out into the world to work in a world that did not look anything like public education, but became an incredible focused supporter of how do we make the changes that will really make a difference for kids in this century, particularly around the work he's done with his innovation playlist. Becky, who is with him today, Becky Ellis is a teacher educator, taught high school English. She also has been an instructional coach and worked with Learning Tech Integration, and is now a program director helping to support up Ted's work here in Virginia and beyond. And so they are here today to do a kickoff for us as we move beyond the book towards learning and actions that we can take to innovate up. So Ted, I'm going to turn it over to you and Becky. And let's all put our seatbelts on, because we're going to be on for a great ride today with Ted, Becky, and then with each other in the breakout room.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Ted and Becky.
Hi, everyone.
Great.
Before Ted gets going, I just wanted to say that it's our first run through with Mentimeter. And Ted has a series of questions that he's going to be asking. We're going to be checking in with you at different points during the presentation, and we'll be using Mentimeter to get your responses. So bear with us as we work through this, because it looks like I'm going to be looking at this shared screen scroll. And then one more thing, what I want to say is what I love most about Ted's message is that it's always been about empowering students and teachers and celebrating what teachers can do when we're given the trust and the freedom that we deserve. So I think you're going to hear a lot of that from him, and we're off and running. Ted, take it away.
I'm ready. Although I have to say, Mentimeter sounds like a breathalyzer you take if you were pulled over by the police. So we'll see how it plays out today. First, I'm thrilled to be here. I hope you know Virginia has a special place in my heart, having grown up in Vienna. I've actually reconnected with my high school and spent a fair amount of time there over the last year and a half. And I will say, just as an intro, that the difference between when I was in high school, which is probably before anybody else on this call was in high school, but I graduated in 1970, the difference between then and now is just night and day. And when I sort of observe what kids are doing in high school today, I say it looks nothing like what we used to do, even though the courses look exactly like the courses I took. But when I was in high school, I don't remember. I'm sure I had homework from time to time. I don't recall doing homework. The school offered a grand total of 2 AP courses, so that was the most you could take. And it was just a very relaxed time. I know all of us who went to college, and that was far from the majority. When we went to take the SAT, we had to read the instructions, because we had no practice for it. We had to figure it out as we went. And so that was just a different universe. But as Pam said, and thank you, Pam, for the great introduction, but I sort of went from the world of academics. I was a remedial student, so it took me 21 years to get done with school. But I left there and I went into technology business and spent 35 years of career there. And I came through that. I think it's helpful to sort of lay out a couple things that emerged from that process that sort of led me to do what I do now, which is advocating for trusting teachers to create distinctive learning experiences that help all kids find their path forward in different ways. But the two things that were my takeaways, one was how fast machine intelligence is racing ahead. And I think people tend to underestimate how quickly routine jobs in the economy are being gobbled up by machine intelligence and will continue to be gobbled up. And I'm going to make a lot of my comments today tied into what's going on in this COVID-19 world. But any business today that isn't fully automated is a business that at the very top of its priority list is how can I be fully automated as quickly as possible? So that pace won't slow down. It's actually going to speed up enormously. And also the complications machine intelligence poses for citizenship. And I had kind of a front row seat on that because I was backing a lot of companies that were bringing productivity developments to people in the workplace. But when you make one person more productive, you often put somebody else out of a job. And my firm, it wasn't my deal, so don't blame me, but we were first round investors in Twitter. And so watching how that has influenced the way people are informed, the way we exchange views on things in tiny little snippets, I think that poses real complications. The second thing that really was a turning point for me in a world where I was deciding who to back, who to hire, was initially for maybe 2 or 3 years, I put my weight on academic credentials. And I would just say, of course, if somebody was an academic superstar, that's the person I should fund. And so I looked for, top performance at the most selective undergraduate schools, and then Baker Scholars out of Harvard Business School. And what I realized, and good for me, I'm glad I did, but I realized pretty early that academic superstars were not just prepared for a world of innovation, they were in many ways anti-prepared. They were not the best people to wade into ambiguity, to take risks, to adjust to setbacks and failures. They were, by and large, agile hoop jumpers. And I sort of started to think, and that as I phased out of my world of venture, I said, what happens in a world where machine intelligence gobbles up all the routine jobs, but even our academic superstars are largely being trained to jump through hoops and do maybe glorified versions of, but to basically do routine jobs. That seemed like a really pressing and important issue. And so I started to visit schools. The more schools I visited, I learn as I go. But I would see things that would trouble me. And, I sort of felt like, oh my gosh, if this is happening in this school, then in the next school, then in another school. And I actually look at that and say, that's going to be unproductive in terms of preparing somebody for a world that I think is full of opportunity, an innovative world, but full of challenge as well. Then this strikes me as an important issue to go after. And so I started by doing the film. I don't know how many of you have seen Most Likely to Succeed. We'll make a link available to anybody, not just for you to watch, but if you want to use it in your community, we'll make that available to you. I don't charge for anything. But that just showed students working together on big, ambitious projects, working as teams, accessing resources as they needed them, with teachers trusted to teach to their skills, to their interest. And we purposely showed 2 side-by-side 9th grade classes where they're doing entirely different things. And that film has had, I think, a fair amount of impact. We did really well at film festivals, Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest EDU. I turned down Netflix, which people said, oh, that's a really bad decision, but it wasn't. We've done now, I think, 10,000 school community screenings in 35 different countries. But then I started traveling with the film. And a point I'll go out of my way here to the people on this call to kind of apologize for is I will apologize for having a business background. And the reason I do that is that I'm at this point quite aware that most people with business backgrounds kind of make a mess of what they want to do in education. They just assume that since they were in school, they're an expert. And I, to this day, even though I visit tons of schools and go to great lengths to listen to and learn from the people that are the experts, namely people on this call, refuse to be called an education expert. I really am not. I'm a fan of, I'm an advocate for, I'm a cheerleader, but I'm not an expert. I think I am an expert in innovation. But as I travel with the film, one of the points of feedback I got, we started with a dozen schools, but we kind of zeroed in on a couple students at a school in San Diego. And it was a school that was started from scratch with a fair amount of money. And people sort of said to me, yeah, that's interesting, but that's not our situation. We're an existing school. We're not starting from scratch. It's actually, and I think they're right, it's a lot easier to start from scratch and create the kind of school we all think makes sense than it is to change an existing school. And they said this school had a large amount of money up front, which they did. And we're dealing with modest to no excess budget dollars. We're trying to get things done on a shoestring with built-in expectations surrounded by all sorts of policy requirements. And the school you showed is great because it gives us a vision of what school could be, but what we really need is help with how to get there. And so then I said, I need to know more. I mean, I felt like it was really important to get out in the field and actually understand and meet lots of people and kind of learn from you. And so I spent an entire school year, basically every day for a school year, traveling to all 50 states. I visited a couple hundred schools. And then I wrote the book, What School Could Be. And we've given out, I've donated a bunch to the state, anybody in the state. And if you have if you have a way to distribute it to a bunch of teachers, any request that says, could you send us 10, 50, 100 books, I'll send them to you. But I tried to highlight things that blew me away and pick examples from, at least one really exciting example from every state, and really show what happens when we get out of the way of our educators in the field and sort of trust them, support them, respect them, but empower them to create the kind of learning experiences that they know will work for their kids, that they know will help those kids find their points of interest and passion and develop skills that matter. And I wanted to pick examples from all over the country to make the point that, the United States doesn't have to go to Finland. We all don't have to make a trek to San Diego. There are teachers in every school in every district doing incredible things. The real question is, how do we build on that? How do we build on the successes that are out there? Because all too often I would find, I'd be at a school and there would be that one lonely, innovative teacher. And there's a degree of fatigue that can set in if you're the only one. It's a lot easier for 10 teachers in a school to innovate than one. or I'd visit a school in a community that was doing really interesting things, oftentimes career academies. If you read my work, I'm a huge fan of career academies. But if they're viewed as that outlier alternative school for some kids, it's hard, and I actually think all kids would benefit from more hands-on career-focused learning environments and challenges. So I tried to really make the point and then get at sort of a change model. But one of the challenges, which sort of will define the rest of my talk here, but I think plays into the very different world we've been in this spring, and likely much of the world we're going to be in next school year and maybe beyond, who knows. But I mean, I think we will be school will be starting and stopping in fits and spurts, because who knows how this is going to play out. But, I tried to take these very different examples that on the surface they didn't look at all like each other. Kindergarten kids in Fort Wayne building robots, and 3rd to 5th graders in a South Carolina poor area using the school garden for learning, or 8th grade kids capturing the history of buildings in downtown Fargo, North Dakota, and then making documentaries. It's like in some ways, it would have been tempting to say there's no rhyme or reason to it because they're all distinctive and different. But I think they were all things that the educator believed strongly could really get their kids excited and could make a case for how it helped those kids develop important skills. And I stepped back and said, what's kind of going on? When I saw the things that blew me away, what were the common elements? And so I use the acronym PEAK, PEAK, but I'll kind of go through those in reverse order, which is first, when I talked to the kids and I interviewed the students a lot and asked them what they're learning, they were really knowledgeable. They could really talk in great detail about what they were learning or what they had learned. And I think it's really important in our education system to draw a distinction between superficially skimming over something for a primarily recall-based exam that's testing how much a kid can cram into their mind in the preceding 24 to 48 hours versus deep retained knowledge. And one of the things you see all the time now, with the spring and all the disruption is, the so-called summer slide. And my point on that is always this, is if you really and truly learn something, there is no slide. The reason there's a summer slide is because it was crammed into short-term memory. And there will always be a slide. And when I ask schools, did you retest? Did you go back? I mean, how do you know what kids really learned? Do you ever do spot quizzes 2 months after? Do you ever re-administer the final they had? And in the movie and in my books, I talk about what they did in Lawrenceville at a very expensive private school in New Jersey, where they did retest the kids. And they found basically none of them retained what they thought they had all learned. And so deep retained knowledge. And I think to the extent we gain some balance between covering things we think are important, but not exhaustively covering every speck of content, and letting kids go deep and really learn something and demonstrate their mastery through, I think, the two most authentic forms of exhibiting real competence and deep knowledge, which are teaching others, an enormous opportunity in our school, and actually creating something or producing something original and then exhibiting it to others, your classmates, your teachers, your principal, your adults in the community. So that was one. The second thing was agency. And when are we going to get more reinforcement than the last 3 months on the importance of agency? That the places that I found were doing incredible things with their kids had largely transferred the responsibility for managing their own learning to the student. The student ran their agenda, they were responsible for managing their time, and they were responsible for gaining the feedback so they'd have a good sense of whether they were making the progress they set out for themselves to make. And when I check back with those schools today and say, how's it going during the COVID-19 challenges? They say they haven't missed a beat, because they can manage their own learning. But believe, I think it's a fair thing to say that a lot of college kids in America, even at top colleges, have lost all sense of agency. So that's a really important principle. The third is essential competencies. And these schools and these teachers were really clear on what they wanted their kids to get good at. And there's this profile of a graduate the state of Virginia has. I really encourage schools and districts to take it to a more granular level. But at these places I was blown away by, they could say, we want our kids to get good at or to become good at the following. and they had a community buy into that, and then they crafted the learning experiences accordingly. And I think it's interesting. I have it pulled up next to me, but this always surprises people. And Laszlo Bock is in my film and in my books, but he was in charge of all people operations for Google. And I want you to listen to this. So Google did a very careful analysis of what skills and mindsets are really important to somebody succeeding at Google, you know, maybe the most visible tech company in the world. Here's their list of the 7 most important things a kid could be good at to do well at Google. Being a good coach, communicating and listening well, possessing insights into others and social awareness, empathy and support toward colleagues, critical thinking, problem solving, and connecting complex ideas. What's missing from that list? STEM. And so over and over again, we'll hear from people that the only way to have a career in the 21st century is a STEM background. And it didn't crack the top 7 at arguably the most important STEM company in the world. So, and then the final thing was this sense of purpose, where if I asked kids what they were studying and why, they had really great reasons. You know, I'm intellectually interested in this, so I'm going deep on it, or we're trying to create or invent this, trying to do this science experiment, trying to solve this problem in our community or create a new opportunity. So they had a really clear, genuine reason for the learning they were doing. Same thing with teachers. And, you know, we often will say what we want our kids to get good at, but really the learning experience aren't aligned with that. And we never or rarely model that same behavior with our educators. So every school's website will say we want our kids to be good collaborators. You don't see that many learning experiences that reinforce collaboration, and there's very little collaboration across the faculty. And so those are big opportunities. So I look at that and I sort of say, wow, isn't this interesting? And I think that gets me to why I think what's going on in Virginia is so important, because I do travel to tons of states. And I think that the endeavors that are taking place all across your state, and I give a lot of credit to the people who organize this forum. I give a lot of credit to James Lane. I think he's doing amazing things. But I think what Virginia is doing is terribly, terribly important. I think you're showing the way, not just across the state, but across the entire country. I think the rest of the world is starting to pay attention. And so I feel like this fight, which I believe is the most important fight of our lives, is desperate for success points, desperate for groups that have the courage to sort of rethink priorities and to figure out ways to collaborate, work together, and inspire each other and coach each other up. And that's what I see happening in Virginia, which is why I'm always so excited to be involved, to reconnect with people and to hear how things are going. So on that note, I don't know if we're onto the Mentimeter at this point, Pam, but I'm ready to turn it over to the next phase of this conversation.
I think we can try some of your questions on Mentimeter. Let's start with one that will translate into your breakout sessions. So what we're wondering is, what was your big aha moment? You probably had more than one, right? From the past several months. Like, what's the thing? Or if you want to break it down, what did you do previously in your practice that you're never going to do again? Or what did you always do? I mean, what did you never do that you're going to start doing all the time? So what crystallized for you, if we can get into Mentimeter and see some responses there? There's some good stuff here. Definite opportunities for building student resiliency and ownership, all the things that we've been talking about, how important they are. And knowing how to use tech tools. I know Pam has a lot to say about the attendance at Vaskel's Google seminars, which has been through the roof. Blended learning. Oh my goodness, there's mine. The overwhelming need for human connectedness. Thank you, whoever posted that there. Personalized approach. Iterative processes, for real, yes. we are failing up, right? I should be quiet and just let you all read through these, and then we'll do a brief discussion with Ted after. Okay, I can't stay quiet. No longer saying anything is impossible. Kudos to you. The assumptions we make about what families can do to support learning at home. So true. Just amazing, great comments here. I think, Jennifer, should we open up the floor? Does anyone have anything they want to elaborate on or something they commented on that they want to share with everyone directly? Involving and supporting families, critical. Ted, what stands out to you? Where do you want to focus? We have 2 minutes.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, maybe more people have questions for me, but you know, I'm particularly interested. I mean, how many people, one of my points was I heard from some people how they either didn't miss a stride or has actually had some really unexpected great things. And from a lot of people, not Virginia specific, but broadly, that it was a waste of time or worse. And so kind of getting a sense across Virginia of where we are on that would be interesting.
I think that's something you all will have the opportunity to dig into in your breakouts. It's integrated into the discussions that you're going to be having with these amazing facilitators. And I really, really appreciate all the sharing that you've done. It will inform our work moving forward, I know. So thank you. We're going to try some more.
I think we're ready to go to our breakouts in just a few minutes, if that's okay. Thank you, Ted. Actually, maybe I'm speaking for everyone here, but Ted, I could hear you speak in your journey for several hours. So if you want to hang on, you know, we can connect back. But the journey and the level of commitment and what I call for myself the belly fire for really making things happen in Virginia is so evident in this sea of faces. Beautiful, beautiful people who've come together who are going to assure that things happen for the good for our children. So Jennifer, if you want to give a few logistics for the breakout, we'll go ahead and get started. We have one breakout today, and then we'll have another exercise using the Mentimeter, and then we'll close.
Yes, Jenna. Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Stevens, President and CEO of Virginia Edge Strategies. We are so happy to be hosting you today. As Gina said, we will be moving into breakout sessions in just a few moments. And just a couple of logistics for you. If you have not experienced breakout rooms before, you'll know that you may not know, but you'll be put into small groups for discussion, and those small groups will be facilitated. I'm going to put up on the screen the session topics, and just keep in mind that we have done some pre-assignments with the breakout rooms, but there are some limitations in Zoom as to how pre-assignments can be done. And some of you that have joined as a guest in Zoom rather than through a Zoom account, I may have to put you into rooms after we get those started. So if you're not automatically transported, just hang tight with me. And I'll also mention that even though in registration you may have picked a certain topic that you were most interested in, just because of the size of the group and some of the limitations in Zoom, you may end up not in the room that you had planned to be, but we hope that you will still be very engaged and still talk with everyone and enjoy your experience. And on your screen, I'm hoping that you are seeing the session topics. There we go. So those are the topics. And then we do have some guiding questions that you will answer or work on during your group time. And they're just a couple. So as you think about the discussion topic for the room that you're in, think about what we have learned through that COVID experience that we were all having. And then also think about how we might begin to make some needed changes and engage others to be part of those changes. So I'm going to go ahead and get those breakout rooms started. And again, bear with me if you're not automatically transported.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I think everyone's coming back out of the breakout session. Wonderful. And I will go ahead and let you know, I think several of us were in sessions. Several of us were in sessions that weren't where we thought we would be beamed up, but it's all good. And I had several text messages and little bits of information. So I would just like to say, I think we just had our first practice session for how to roll with it in this COVID virtual world. So you guys did a great job. We had a great session with Scott Kisner. I don't know who landed in the professional learning session. I'm sure that it all went really, really well. So thank you so much. At this time, we would like for you to get into this Menti. Let's look at an opportunity to think about the session that you were in. And please take time to give us a reflection, some burning idea. Quite often I call it the belly fire. What do you have a belly fire about? What resonated in these conversations? And I will read some of these, but please take time to look at them as well. Certainly asking us to strive to include student voice in lesson planning. As you think about a reflection, I will let you know that you are going to get a survey. You will receive a survey after this session today because we expect to have subsequent sessions where we can do some deep dives. So if you wanted to put that in the Menti as well, go ahead. Things that you absolutely want to make sure that you can have opportunities where you can engage in deeper dives in specific areas. Feedback versus grades has come up a lot. And when I say a lot, not only today, but a lot of input over probably over 200 Zooms that I've personally been involved in since March.
Gina, we did hear in our session, Tina and I heard quite a bit about how do we even reduce the number of state tests further in order to create more bandwidth and opportunity, not to get away from accountability, but to look at perhaps different ways of assessing students that get at deeper learning. So I did hear that. And I just saw
Yes.
something similar pop up.
Yes, thank you. In our session, someone had mentioned that possibly what we will see as students return, and even as our teachers and educators work with the students who have been either in a virtual learning setting, that actually there's been a lot of learning, and a lot of learning that can't be measured on that, what we call the bubble test. And so our some of the takeaways was that we do not want to lose this momentum and this opportunity to certainly advocate and champion for assessments that are different, and that look at work-based learning, place-based learning, and how do we show and give students opportunities to show what they've learned. I love this.
So
it's
Gina,
super cool. Sorry, it's super cool
Gina,
to have direct conversations with cross-section of educators. Wonderful. Go ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering if you might want to just chat a minute about what we see coming next. We're going to have the poll today to try to figure out what of these topics people want to keep going as group discussions. But do you want to talk a little bit about what you see as maybe the next steps with this, and the fact that the partnership does have the capability to champion the voices of multiple organizations, not just our organizations as individuals?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to, what I will do is loop back to something that I left out as we began, just because I was sensitive to the timing. But the Commonwealth Learning Partnership was started with what we call our founding partners, and those partners were key in developing profiles, supporting profiles for the profile of a Virginia graduate. So that work really guides those pieces of work, guide how we step into our next bit of work across Virginia. So what I mean is this, is that the profile of a Virginia graduate is, for me, it was a pivotal time in Virginia, a pivotal time for that to be approved by the Board of Education and put into a place where it's required. You know, it's required for us to see things differently. It's required, there are requirements associated with that. But what we did, we looked at a profile of a Virginia educator, profile of a Virginia education learner, profile of a classroom. And each of these groups, VASCD, for example, has wrapped their arms around the profile of a Virginia classroom. And William and Mary, CERN, George Mason University, looking at the profile of a Virginia educator and leader. BASCL in the cohorts, we have 60, as of the second year, have 60 out of 132 school divisions involved in the Innovative Learning Network. All of those pieces together, all of those places together and those people together are looking at what does it take, what are those competencies and skill sets that have to be in place in order for us to have sustainable change in public education. Our next steps with this particular piece and this particular opportunity, we're so grateful for Ted. Hopefully Ted will join us all along, but we're very, very grateful for Ted and his insights and just his journey across the nation looking at innovative practices. That we have now partner organizations, and I'm gonna tell you who those people are because I think it's important and it continues to grow. So we have the Ed Policy Forward out of George Mason University. We have School University Resource Network, CERN, VAS, VASCD, Virginia SCL, William and Mary School of Education, UVA, Courier School Ed and Human Development, the UVA K-12 Advisory Council, UVA Center for Politics for the Youth Leadership Initiative, Virginia Ed Strategies, and we thank Jennifer for her team hosting today, VCU School of Education, and Office of Strategic Engagement, Virginia Society for Technology and Education, and we have Supporter Network. We have Amy Griffin, former superintendent in Cumberland, Cindy Blunt, Matt Hurt from Southwest Virginia Comprehensive Instructional Program, and we have many more who will be joining as of the end of the week. The point is this is a collective group of champions for education in Virginia and for education to look differently and to really make equity what I call more than a bumper sticker. I mean, really do the work that resonates across families and communities. So our next step, once you get that survey, is to build the next session so that, as Pam called it, and I love this, how she's thinking about, how we're thinking about this, is that we build network of networks. We want you to tell us what you need. We want to dive deeply into areas of focus. For example, we have Janice View out of George Mason University and Betsy DeMulder. Both of them have done beautiful work in transformational leadership and education for teachers. And they have just amazing work and experiences looking at racism. We have to be brave and bold and look for opportunities together as educators, as stakeholders, as energized champions for our children, because, you know, I don't know about you, but why else are we here? I mean, what else matters? We've got to do this for our children. And again, it can't be just a great, really pretty little bumper sticker. I think these are actionable things. These are pieces and spaces where we can do great work. So the partnership is committed together with these partners that I just listed to support conversations and then action. Stephanie Krause joined us today. She is a special projects lead for Jobs for the Future. She and her team have been integral in helping us establish this partnership. We've had some funding streams from Hewlett in the past and expect to get more funding. But the purpose of speaking about Jobs for the Future is that they have helped us work to connect these organizations in Virginia. And this is unlike anything in the nation. And that's not said in some boastful way. If anything, it's a bit messy. And so we have lots of work to do, but you've got a great group of people very committed to making this happen for you and to create sustainable support for educators who are just about ready to step into a very new space, very new, it's uncharted territory. And we don't want to lose that momentum and that excitement. But back to Stephanie and a piece of an opportunity from her team is that once we take some time to dive more deeply, and so in like 2 months, we'll have another session you may join back in and you invite your friends. And then in another 2 months, we'll connect with you in an ongoing way. And then we want to create time quarterly so that networks can connect and share strategies and be of support to each other. But the other piece that I would call a little bit of a missing piece that we're going to take on is advocacy. And Stephanie and her team and we've been working together to create in the fall an opportunity to train you how to be an effective advocate. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we will tell you what to advocate for. That'll come through our work together, but we will certainly help you understand how do you advocate for needed change in the local level in front of a school board. How do you advocate at a state level? I mean, how do you really make these things happen, knowing that it is hard and laborious and long-term work? VAS has always had an advocacy component of their work. VASCD has had a beautiful advocacy component of their work. But if we're connected together, I believe, with everything in me and everything in us, that we are definitely going to be better together in this work. So that's how we see these next steps. And just really very grateful and excited to have these conversations together. There's a lot of good energy and I would say a lot of momentum that I'm not surprised about. I've seen it coming and all of us have, but please take time to look at, continue to look at this input coming through the Mentimeter, which I really like. I'm hoping we're able to to save that. I'm thinking we are, but I'm not real sure because I'm not the best tech support person in the world. But with that, we have about 3 minutes. And I wanted to thank all of our facilitators. I know there were beautiful conversations. We did have a little bit of quirky things going on with Zoom today. Apparently 2 of our sessions got wiped off the map, but that's okay because we just continued to roll because we had people who wanted to talk. So they got in those sessions and they just started talking. That's okay. You know, we just keep going. That's part of the journey. But with that, if Ted, I'm looking to see if Ted is still on, if he wanted to say anything to this beautiful sea of faces who've joined us today. Ted, would you like to have something to say as we say farewell?
I do. You know, in our group, we talked about the opportunity to completely restructure and reframe accountability. You know, the SAT and ACT tests are on the ropes. People have seen what kids have to go through when they take these tests at home, where you have to lock up your keyboard and have a camera behind you. They start to realize, why is a kid taking a test in circumstances they'll never see in the rest of their life? You've had a change in the legislature. You're going to have a new governor. I feel like Virginia, if we don't like the way we're being held accountable today, and I don't find anybody across the state that thinks what we're doing today makes a shred of sense, now's the time to rethink that. Because if we change the accountability, if we start looking at authentic examples of creative, distinctive, powerful student work, we will change the learning environment. So that would be my highest, you know, beg out of this group, is to take that on, because the window is open to make real change.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Totally agree. So with that, I believe we have 1 little minute. Anyone with a burning desire to say anything to share?
I just think that we should all be thankful that we have organizations in Virginia where people are working together, coming together, and seeing the power of the collective in the work to really support up educators in Virginia. And we'll never be perfect. We'll always make mistakes. But the bottom line is that we are better together. And that's what I would end with, is just by saying, I think, Gina, thanks to everyone that joined us today. And thank you to Ted and Becky. And remember, if you want books, Ted has said, we'll get books to you. Just make sure that you've got a plan for how you'll be able to use those in really effective ways. And thank you. And Becky, thanks for putting the link to the movie up in the event that people are also looking to share Most Likely to Succeed still.
Yes. Thank you so much. And with that, farewell, and we will stay connected. Look for a survey that will also give you some information about how to get a book. Ted, thank you again for your time. Your time is precious. And we just appreciate so much having the sea of faces with us to get today. And let's do this. Let's do this. Thank you.